Welcome back, birds and turds, to the Angry Bird Pod Show. I'm your host, Kyle. You can find me on Instagram at kyle.boehm.photography. This is my host, Matt. You can find him at matt_parish on Instagram.com. And another thing we've added, because obviously people are listening to this on podcast platforms, we are now on YouTube at the Angry Bird Pod Show. There's no video yet, but the episodes are going up there. And we just thought it was another good place to start throwing shit up. So, what's going on, Matt?
Not much. Happy to be back.
Yeah.
It's always fun to be recording.
I do agree. It's more fun than I thought. Like, I thought it was going to be kind of like... obviously, there's work involved, but I thought it was going to be more. But I think just because you and I can banter for a while, it's been really fun just to chop it up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. So... I was going to say, I haven't seen you in a while, but that's a lie. We saw you a week ago.
You did. Less than, Sunday.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We went to one of our favorite destinations in Toronto to try to shoot some anything. And we came up...
I think it was owls. I think that was the main goal.
Well, the problem was that you went there the week before and actually saw owls. So I raised my hopes to a level that they probably shouldn't have been. Oh, we didn't do something.
Twisted tea.
Hashtag twisted tea. I realized that now we normally forget to open a can. So I wonder if the trend is going to be pretending to forget.
I know. I think we're going to forget every time.
Yeah, but then we're going to remember, and then I'm going to go, should we pretend to forget so that it's consistent with the other ones?
Yeah, we should run this back.
Yeah, rewind. But anyway, you had gone to this park a week before and had great luck because, of course, I wasn't there.
That's the running joke. Yeah, and there might be something to that.
I was going to say, is it a joke? Because it happened.
No. We've talked about this off the show, but, I used to... This isn't what we talked about, but I'll kind of segue in this way. I used to go fishing a lot. I used to be a pretty big angler when I was younger. And that's kind of what got me into bird photography or wildlife photography to begin with, because I spent most of my time outdoors. So it was kind of an easy transition. And looking for a fish where you're not sure where it is similar to looking for an animal or a bird. So...
they do share a lot of similarities for sure.
They do share a lot of similarities, so that's probably where it came from. Where was I going with that? Kind of lost my train of thought. What were we talking about there for a second? We
were talking about the park and how I didn't see anything because I was there.
Oh yes, yeah. It's not because you weren't there. It's this is exactly what I was gonna say. If you're, say we go 2 or 3 times a year, it's kind of hard to get on a pattern. And sometimes when you go, you do luck out. And that's just kind of one of those days where you do see lots of things and everything, all the stars align more or less for you and you get some luck. But if you're not going out regular enough and staying on top of things, the chances of you not seeing things are pretty good.
You know what's funny?
So I do think that shares a similarity with fishing. You got to stay on the bite. You got to stay on what they're doing that time of year, where they are. Yeah. So I do know that, or I do think it has a lot to do with having the time to be able to stay on top of where everything is and how things are moving and changing, because it does. It's day by day, season by season. So,
well, it's funny you say that because, like, I used to go just due to work scenarios. I was able to go to like a local park pretty much every lunch. I just would hop over. It was like across. I would drive over, but it was like very close drive, and I would just walk the same trail every day with my camera, and 90% of the time you wouldn't see anything interesting, but occasionally you'd see. The one year there was a marsh, not a marsh wren, freaking marsh sparrow, no, swamp sparrow. It was a swamp sparrow at a spot that wasn't usually, and like it was there for a couple of days, and I got to see it. I saw some towies or towies. That's another one that I don't know how to pronounce. Towie. And didn't they change?
I'm not sure either.
Didn't they change the name? Like, wasn't it Rufus sided, and then now it's like Northern or something? I don't know.
I'm
Anyway,
not sure. I do know a bunch of names changed.
yeah.
That shows how I'm photography first, but
Right.
I
Yeah.
do know that some
I
have
should be the
changed.
one to know since I kind of say I'm the birder first sometimes, but
Right.
yeah, I saw like stuff migrating through that was only maybe there for 10 minutes, and it's because I was
Mhm.
going day after day. So you're right. Like that is a big part of it. And something I'm
Yeah.
struggling with recently because I don't have as much time, or I maybe it's not that, it's maybe just I don't dedicate enough time to going out.
And that's why you should harbor some expectations.
That's hard for me.
It's hard because you know it's a good spot that can produce. And we're talking like we didn't see anything. I think the issue is that I think I ran into two northern saw-whet and two barred owl the
Hmm.
morning that I was there, the week before we went. So that kind of got hopes up for sure. I mean, for me as well. And it's funny. It sounds like we didn't see anything because we did happen to see a saw-whet and we did actually run into a barred owl
Yeah.
last weekend.
Yeah,
So it
true.
wasn't a skunk. It wasn't a skunk by any means. Like we didn't get skunked.
So I came away a little bit mixed emotions, and we talked about this earlier this week. But
Yeah.
the cool part to me was the other times that I've seen a bard in general. Probably my favorite owl. Shorties are close, but I think a bard I like more for some reason. They they've always been perched, and I've been like, don't disturb it like it's doing. The cooler one was the second one I saw where it clearly had just finished a meal. So I have a bunch of pictures of it like cleaning, it like preening itself after, wiping its beak on a branch, and it
Yep.
like had red shmoo all over him.
Yep.
And then it just like fluffed up and started sleeping while I took a mess load of pictures of it. But they're always sitting there. This time, it flew towards me and past me. So it was cool to see it just for like a birding guy kind of thing, like dodging trees and going through little holes and
Yeah. Navigating the
weaving.
forest. Yeah.
Yeah,
Under the canopy. Yeah.
because they're big. Like they're not like a sparrow that just like darts through. Like they've got some mass to them.
Or like the sharp shinned, which I believe was that kind of flew kind of by us and down the path and into
Yeah,
the forest. Like it
it's
kind of
hard to
was like
see.
precision,
Oh yeah,
whereas like with the owl, there's precision to it, but there's kind of slightly slower movements, and it's kind of like watching like a little jumbo jet kind of fly, kind of under the canopy.
but it was close enough that like this is a stupid sentence, but it's close enough that I didn't hear it. You know what I mean? Because they say like owls are silent when they're flying.
Yeah,
It flew past me close enough that I was like, I didn't
that's
hear it
true.
fly past.
Yeah,
It was cool.
exactly.
So like,
Yeah, and there are things like that to take away from it. Like you may not have got the photos of it, but you still got that exact experience that you would with the photos, like your own personal experience of seeing it.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing for me, because like we both know that you started in photography, then got into bird photography. But for
right.
me, I was into birds first, and then photography is just another part on top of that, which I really enjoy now. So the birder side of me was like, dope, and then the photography side was like, I missed it.
Why did I just walk 7 kilometers for
I
this
think it was like 14 or 15 according to
throughout the whole? Yeah, the
Gregory's
whole day.
smartwatch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a good trek out there,
But
but
yeah,
we didn't get skunked.
we
We
didn't
did.
get skunked. No.
We came across a sleeping saw-whet,
Mhm.
nice tucked away in a nice, beautiful photogenic location. No, it wasn't. It was actually behind a little. It was in some cedars. It was up in some young cedars. So when I say up in the cedars, it might only been 10 feet up, but it was
If
in the
that.
back. Yeah, if that. Yeah, it probably was actually 8.
Mhm.
It was in the back, behind the kind of main, trunk of the tree or the cedar, and yeah, it was a great spot for an owl to be roosting. So you
What I
gotta,
don't what I don't understand is like I've been with I was gonna say I've been with you a couple times. I've been birding with you a few times now, and you just kind of like mosey into a bush, and you're like, "There's one in here," and I could stare at the
yeah.
same bush for 6 months and not see the same owl. Like I don't know what
I
I'm
went. I
not
had I
doing.
had a memory come up on Instagram for a story that I shared, and it was exactly a year ago. It was Monday, I guess, because that's how it works, right? Like we skip a day,
That's true,
so it would have been
except on
like the
leap years with me
Monday.
too.
And Keith, our buddy Keith McGarity on Instagram. Him and I went to try to go find him his first saw wet, and the exact same thing. I mosey on, meandered into a bush, and I came out, and I'm like, Keith, there's one in here, and he's just like, what?
You literally have
And
done
he,
that to me like 4 times. You're like, there's one here.
I wouldn't say I get a feeling, because a lot of these findings are certainly in that specific area. So the chances of seeing one in that
Mhm.
area, of course, are good. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I just guess I kind of get used to knowing where to look because I guarantee there's other locations that I've gone to and I've moseyed on into a bush and I didn't see it and it might have
Yeah.
been there. So then
I
the
know
familiarity helps.
I know I've walked past 14 owls, probably.
You've thought. I think everyone's thought of that. How many owls have you passed
So many.
that were
I
just
guarantee you.
there to have?
Especially screech. I'm pretty sure there's a
Oh,
screech in every forest.
I think there's a screech on every concession road up where I live that has a south-facing farm field. There has to be. The oaks and the ash trees that we have
Hmm.
lining these east and west running concessions with flat land, all flat farmland, where a lot of the snowies are. There are so many holes in these trees and woodpecker holes and cavities that barred owls can be in. And I've never seen anything but like out of 100 trees, 88 of them are absolutely perfect. And maybe that actually makes it more tough.
Yeah. It's just
Because it's
the
not
bigger.
two, there's just way more to check.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny today. Like, it's funny you saying that. So I had to, for my work, had to drive to a nearby location, and it was past some fields. And my eyeballs, I can see as much as you. This isn't a skill. I think everyone who birds has this skill. But as much as you can find sawwets, I can point hawks out on the side of the road like it's crazy.
Hmm.
Like anyone who's with me, I'm like, oh, there's a guy. I call them
I
fellas.
do.
I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's a
Okay.
fella on the pole, or there's a fella on the tree. And sometimes they'll be on the edge of the woods, and they're just like the way the red tailed hawk sits. They're so like
You
chest
can
up.
see that white chest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today we were driving past this big. It's just like a bush at the back of a farmer's field, and there was a thing. It could have very well been just an odd angle of a branch, but there was something sitting on the edge that wasn't a white chest. It was gray. And I'm like, that could be a bard. But it was so far back in this bush, and I had to go like do work stuff. But I was
Hmm.
like, it's probably a bard because I can't go look at it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for the story, we'll just say it is.
Yeah, I saw a bard today. But I it was so like exactly like you said, like east west facing the road right on the edge of it, like looking into the sun in the morning.
Yep. Yep. I mean, the picture you paint sure sounds like it could have been,
Hmm.
you know,
I
the right
know it wasn't
scenario.
a red tail because I know how they sit.
Hmm.
Like I've just
That's how. Yeah, that's how I pick out snowy owls actually too. They actually distinctively have like the way the
pumpkins.
sun reflects the sun reflects off their white when they're sitting in white snow slightly different that it
Hmm.
kind of gives them away. Certainly to me, I don't know if it does to their prey or other predators. I,
Yeah,
I don't know. But certainly to me, I can tell that difference. And then you get that camera on there and you crop in and there's just a little snowman. Yeah.
yeah,
Like I'm talking
tundra
about the really
pumpkins.
far ones. Yeah. Yeah.
The
That's actually one of my favorite things to do is actually like go out and see if I could find one just like 2 or 3 fields in, just for your own little kind of
mhm.
ego booster.
I there's a friend of mine who posted stuff that wasn't a snowy. So it was like a like a bucket on a post in a
Yeah.
field, or like a bag, and
You
like
win
that kind of.
again, bag.
Yeah, it all the time. Frickin' Zares bags, or like any
Yeah.
shopping bag. The
Yeah.
first time, well, not the first time I saw a snowy, but the first time I found one on the ground, because the first snowy I saw was actually a female on a post. I was looking for them, and then I came around a corner, and there was like 25 cars pulled over, and I was like, "What the fuck are they looking at?" And I was, "Oh, this is snowy owl thing I was looking at on the post." But I was slowly driving some concessions, and there was this little bump, and it like what you kind of just said. I was like, that doesn't look like snow. It was white, and the field was white, and it was like it just looked a little different.
Something wasn't right. Yeah.
I got out of the car, put my lens on it, and I still through the lens was like, "What is? I don't know. Is it?" And then it turned, so it's like it was the
Yeah.
back of its head was facing me. Then it
Yeah.
was like
I was just gonna
eyeballs.
say that. I
What
was just
else?
gonna say that it's almost like you need to see that little smiling like
Mhm.
jack o' lantern face to
No,
confirm. Because yeah, they do blend in really
they
well.
have one of the best mustaches. Just
They
like not
do.
even in the bird world, just anybody.
Yeah, kind of
It's
reminds me of that guy from Futurama.
oh Ned Flanders.
No, oh yeah, Ned Flanders, but Futurama, the other Simpsons. Who's that
Oh
guy?
yeah. Oh
The weird crab guy. Can't remember his name.
yeah. I wasn't a huge um
No, me either.
Futurama
But you
fan.
know
But
what
I
I'm
know who you're
talking about.
talking. The
He's
red
got
guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But they have such a like 70s policeman little mustache,
Yeah,
and it's great.
yeah, it's hilarious.
It's
Yeah, I
so
love him.
good.
I
But
have one
like,
right behind me. You guys can't see that, but
yeah, nice
when we
female
get
on a
video.
post.
Yeah, that was the very first one that I saw. This isn't going to be good for you guys, but the very first one I saw, it's an absolutely terrible photo.
It's not terrible.
Um, well, in terms of what I could probably get now, even sitting on a post, or what I've got
You mean you were
since.
sitting on the post? You're just sitting on the
If
fence
actually,
down from one?
dude, if I was sitting on this is a hydro pole, so if I was sitting on another hydro pole, that would be a photo that I don't think anybody has.
That's true.
A hydro pole, like
Hydropole. That would be kind of funny.
that eye level
That eye
shot.
level snowy, but it is on the hydropole.
Yeah, it was taken by a drone. That'd be the first
No,
thing.
then you need me on the ground, like wide
Yeah,
angle,
filming it.
showing the
Filming it.
two of you.
Yeah, yeah.
One last year
So,
there was a male that was hanging around a town nearby, like just on the outside, and usually
mhm.
was on this fence or like against this bush in the when I passed it in the morning. The one morning, and I didn't stop, and I'm so mad to this day. It was standing on the shoulder and just like watching cars pass. And I know they're large, but I didn't realize how big until it was that close to cars. And I was like, that like the cars in front of me, I was like, that's big. And I'd seen that
Yeah.
owl daily for like a week. And then
Mhm.
it moved on. It was towards the end of the winter, so I think it just had
So
moved to that field
stop
and
for
then
a bit.
effed
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
There's like farms. I think there's a chicken farm nearby, and they probably just toss like
Yeah,
the
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 carcasses.
carcasses out. There's
Yeah,
bald eagles that are near there too. So I think that they do the same thing. They just like
yeah.
prey on they scavenge whatever the
Ravens
scraps
and
are.
bald eagles. Yep. Yeah, there's a guy around my area that he's just a little west or east of me, but he has a big piece of land. He's an old guy. Him and have you ever seen Lake Placid?
I know of it. I don't think I've seen it though.
I'm pretty sure. I think it's Betty White. She's like in the. She lives on this. She's a small character in the movie, but she feeds the alligator. She
Hmm.
knows about the big alligator on Lake Placid.
Oh, okay.
And she kind of feeds it, and at the end, the alligator has babies, even though they killed the big one. So Lake Placid too, blah blah blah. But
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
he does the same thing. There was this old couple, and they throw out their scraps into this big pile in the middle of the woods, and they have bald eagles and ravens and things all over. It's wild.
Funny you say
They're like
ravens.
pet
So
ravens.
my wife had the dog at work today, and she texted me. She's like, I don't know if I saw the biggest crow in the world or it was a raven. And then she said that it flew over her head and landed on a nearby tower, little like radio tower.
Mhm.
And then I sent her a YouTube video of what it sounds like. She was like, "Yep, it was that." And I
It's
guess
so distinct.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess she's been hearing it for quite a while and thinking it was. She actually thought it was sandhill cranes for a long time because she's seen them
Okay.
in the fields around her
Yep.
work.
Yep.
And then, but today she was like, "No, I've been hearing this raven."
The whole time.
I saw an Instagram post a while ago that was like, people always think they see ravens, and they're like, "Oh, it's a big crow," but then when you see one, you're like, "Holy fuck! Like that's a big ass
Oh,
crow."
yeah, it's so different, especially that habituated pair that I had up in Algonquin. Like when they're 3 feet from you,
Hmm. It's a
they're big.
big ass bird.
They're
Yeah.
big. It's like when you said when you see the barred owl kind of flying
Hmm.
through the woods above you, like they're just much larger
It's hard
than
to
you'd
show.
expect.
It's hard to show
Yeah,
scale
scale.
in
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
I don't know how I would do that better.
I think it's hard to show scale in pictures with compression.
Yeah. So we need like 35 mil
That's
portraits
where a
of.
wide angle would come in, as much as I'm just not really into that type of photography myself.
Mhm.
But I think that's where you could show some scale because you're actually showing the scale of the environment.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think that's where you would kind of
Because
be able
if
to
Carl's
show that.
pictures are anything to go by, like Snowies are almost the same size as CN Towers.
Compression is a that's like 2.5 kilometers away from it too, and they
Yeah, I
look
know.
about the same size. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting. You ever seen those like clips on Instagram or TikTok or whatever that show like this same size subject but with different focal lengths to show the
Yeah.
difference in
Yeah.
compression? I
Yeah.
love those videos because I don't.
Yeah.
It's hard to see that in a
Right.
shot. So
Right.
seeing it consecutively like that's handy.
Mhm. Yep.
But why couldn't we see more owls? I really wanted to.
Well, like I said,
You
it's
saw
kind of
two
one of those
bards.
things where it's hit and miss. Yeah, I did see two bards and I did see two saw-whet. One was sitting out quite nice. And it was a different one. After going through and looking at,
Hmm.
I assumed it was the same one as what I saw in that area the week before, only because I mean it was in the nearly identical area, but 10 feet over. And I looked at those photos and I compared them, and there's different markings. There's different markings on the chest.
Hmm.
They kind of have this like collar piece that's brown before it starts to go streaky on their chest, and that's more prominent in the one that I found the week before.
And it was in the same tree stand or like stand of trees, right? Or similar.
Yeah, like 10 feet away, 15 feet away. It was like where you kind of go down the hill and into the little
Hmm.
like stand area. Like it was just on the outside where we met Dan. It's
Yeah, yeah.
funny, we ran into a acquaintance that I got introduced to it and on my Algonquin trip, Dan Cedrin on Instagram. And we were coming out from looking at the Saw-Whet, and I guess he was looking for his very first one and came to this location.
I've come up
And
with a
yeah,
new
it was
nickname for you
funny.
just now.
Okay.
You're the Owl Sherpa.
I'm I just bring people
You have.
guide people. Yeah, I
Like I
guess
at
so.
least know of Dan. You said Keith, me,
Keith,
Craig.
that's true. That
That's
is
like
true.
four. No, I Will saw his first with me when I missed seeing it in the same tree.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, was last year, and we were in actually the same spot, that same
Hmm.
cedar
It's very
thing.
pop. Yeah, it's very popular with
We
the
were
Saw-Whet.
standing there, and he was like, "What do they look like?" I'm like, "Oh, they're like fist or mug size, and they sit and like whatever." He's like, "Is that one?" And I looked at him
Oh
like,
no.
"Yup, that's one." And I had just been kind of casually scanning that tree, and I was like, "Damn it,
Okay. So reason number one why we can't see more owls.
I suck."
That's one.
That's me. It's me.
That's one. So
I
there's
know.
that one.
I know a second reason. This isn't a
That's
joke.
you.
This is actually second. Well, I'm sort of part of the second reason as well.
Okay.
I think having four of us this time traipsing through leaf litter all at the
Yeah.
same time probably didn't
100%.
help.
I definitely believe I will post some of the photos with this post for the podcast for episode 6. Episode 6?
Yeah.
Episode 6. I had some really nice looks with them, I think because it was just me and I was able to, when I saw it, pause, give the owl a break, the barred owl specifically.
Hmm.
Let it get to a mode because when I saw it, it was actually overlooking like this little bay, this peninsula, and I startled it. It startled me. I didn't even see it. It was eye level, like off the ground, 6 feet. Obviously tracking something or waiting for something to come out. It flew off. It went up to a tree. I saw it. I stayed for about 5 minutes. Still got its behavior to kind of change. So then I knew I could probably approach it a little bit more without it flying again. Because you know
Hmm.
how we saw the one this last week and it flew over us. It went to a tree, but as we like started to kind of walk towards it, it took off again instantly.
Yeah. It
We didn't really
was.
give it that time to because we were excited. There's four of
Mhm.
us and everyone's kind of trying to get to it. Um, I gave it some time to settle down, and it was almost to the point where its eyes were kind of shutting. So I guess was like, oh, it's gonna decide to have a break. Then I kind of worked my way into it. So I do think you're right with four people. More people, it's harder.
A term that. So for everyone who doesn't know, I've been added to a couple different WhatsApp groups from this fella over here, and a term that I hadn't heard until I think probably the first one was the term fieldcraft. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know what that meant, but as I understand it, it's just your kind of skills wandering through the woods to like not disturb things or just knowing where to kind of place yourself and how to interact with it to not disturb things, and like knowing kind of where to go and be.
And
Uh,
position yourself.
yeah.
Position yourself because there's a way to. I don't know if fieldcraft really applies to birding because you just need to see the bird.
Hmm.
But when
Yeah.
you locate a bird or an animal, when it's due to photography, you also then need to actually really consider where it is, where it's. With birds, you'll notice they'll have specific perches that they're kind of used to, and you'll notice them frequenting the same kind of perches a couple times. So then you want to use that information to set yourself up via what the light angle is or how the backgrounds look or so
Hmm.
yeah, all that kind of comes into fieldcraft of setting yourself up in a position to work with that bird knowing based on behaviors and you know
Yeah.
what you believe it's going to give you opportunity. It doesn't always work out, but I'd argue having fieldcraft is way better than not.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
what's funny is like my ADHD stupid brain is like, there's the thing. Take the picture of the thing. We need to take a picture
Well,
of, and
there
it's
there is that. There is that. I think you're right.
yeah. But then like it's I don't know
There's
if this is
stages. There's that stage and then there's
yeah.
the like okay, I've got that shot. It's still around stage 2.
What's next? Yeah.
What can I do with
The
it now
safety
that it's
shots are first.
Yeah, exactly. It's a safety shot. I don't think you need to get a safety shot of a chestnut-sided warbler.
No? You don't like them?
Oh, I'm just saying in general. I don't think you need to. Okay, sorry. This is me talking. I don't need to get a safety shot of a chestnut-sided warbler. I have shots of a chestnut-sided
Hmm.
warbler. I can skip the safety shot.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody
Fair.
that does not have that species or has very bad luck with them or doesn't have a photo they're happy with yet, yes, take the safety shot and then work your way from there.
Here's a tangent. I think you know this, but the podcasters don't know this. And maybe I've said it. I hate the term lifer, and I want to kill it. It needs to go away because it's a stupid word, and I love stupid words. That's just a stupid word.
Hmm.
I don't have a
I
replacement.
I think I've been doing this long enough, and I'm a rookie, but I've been doing this long enough that sound that term lifer isn't used very much anymore. Certainly around the group that I
Yeah.
hang out with, it's less frequent for sure.
Not that I'm
Because a
active
lot of
on it.
people have seen a lot of birds now.
Yeah. Not that I'm active on it, but there's a local bird Facebook group that I like to help out on.
Mhm.
Mostly it's yes, that's a red-tailed hawk. No, it's not an immature bald eagle. And like, no, we can't help you with the ID because it's freaking the croppedinest thing on half a
It was a
pixel,
it was a
17 miles away.
30 times zoom on a
Yeah.
Samsung, and then you cropped in. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but sometimes, actually, you know what's funny? Someone posted a picture of a pied-billed grebe, but they had
Hmm.
their 600. It was the Sigma 150 to 600 contemporary on like probably a something D from Canon. I don't remember. But they didn't crop it. They just left it super tiny because it was like a mile out in this thing. I could better tell what that bird was with the way they presented that picture than if they were
Yeah.
to zoom in.
Because you're
Because
only getting one kind of compression versus cropped, then compressed
yeah. And how
on
big it was
social.
if they were to like make it sort of using the term wrong, like full frame, it would
Yeah.
have just been a brown smudge and being a lot
Right.
harder. But like
Right.
where it was and like the context of it with the background, you could see the little white beak, and I was like, oh, it's tiny, and it's got the little neck and round head.
So you're telling me that it's probably better to try not to crop,
Right. And I will be the first
even for
person.
photography.
There's cropping for composition,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sure.
which I
Yeah.
think is
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
there's cropping to turn a non-portrait shot into
Yeah.
a air
Yeah.
quotes portrait
You
shot.
know, it's funny that you said that because now I understand why like some people get mad when people say things, and it's because there can be a two things can be true at once.
Mm-hmm. Well, they say there's
So
two
many
sides to every
times.
story.
Yeah, like so many times you're like, you should never crop. And then it was like, well, I crop all the time for composition. I go, damn, I just thought that was like assumed.
Yeah.
That's why you got mad? Oh, my bad. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
of course. But yeah, okay. But that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're trying to, I would say if you're trying to position the bird in a frame, that's different type of cropping than when you're trying to make the bird larger or the subject
Yeah.
larger.
Well, because especially when you're trying to maintain detail.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm not sure if people care about that because I do. I don't want to crop to lose resolution. I want to crop to put the bird in a different. I used to for sure think I needed every picture to be a frame filling thing. Like I 100% did that, and I'll admit that for sure.
I think everybody kind of goes through that stage.
I think they see other people practicing good fieldcraft to be able to get closer.
Yeah.
And then they see,
And then Topaz lies to them.
Then Topaz lies to them.
And then they crop and then they throw it through Topaz. They sharpen it up.
Yep.
They denoise it and then they gigapixel it.
And then they crop
And then
again.
they want it. And then they crop again a little bit on Instagram. And then they expect, it's that expectation again.
Mm-hmm.
They expect it to look like something that somebody has fieldcraft and had proximity.
Yeah.
Right?
Proximity is fucking key. And unfortunately, that's not something you can fake.
And it's key even to small and frame, in my opinion.
Well, properly small, I guess. Well,
because you still should use the right lens for small and frame. I think a small and frame 135 is going to look way nicer than a small and frame 800. Because a small and frame 800, you're shooting through so much of that atmosphere that you're probably not within range anyways, and you're not going to have the best quality. Whereas at 135, you're still really, really close to that thing. In terms, you're probably like shooting at like 20 feet, but it's still small and frame.
Yeah.
Whereas for it to be small and frame with an 800, like something that I would use, I'd have to be 80 yards away. Well, it's like you can't really maintain quality that way. So like there is a proper way to shoot small and frame, in my opinion.
Well, circling back
to that, you still
got
to use that right tool.
Yeah, circling back to that Sawwhet Owl. I had the 800 on the R8, and I thought I was far enough away, and it was way too close, and I was like, "Gosh darn it!" Like, and I was like leaning against a white pine, like I can't go back anymore.
I threw mine on when I found the one the previous week, and it was out in the open, and I had kind of the room, sort of, and it still wasn't quite enough.
Yeah. And that's where like people crave the millimeters because they think that it'll help them get closer or like make the bird bigger. But I think I've said this before, not on the podcast, but I've said it to people, like millimeters are for making the subject bigger, not to shoot farther away things.
Correct. The working distance is still relative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I agree.
Another thing, people like Carl and Shay will sometimes post like a small in frame with their 300 and 400 mil lenses. And I'm like, that looks great. And then they'll get like close shots using the same lens, and they also look great. And it's the difference in compression and just what a 400 mil looks like, which I realize that I really like. But the problem is, if you want that frame filling GoldenEye or some duck, you have to be closer to that thing. You have to be. You can't crop in. It's not. It doesn't look the same.
And sure, teleconverters can help in really good situations. They can.
Teleconverters.
I feel like you can. I feel like you can do a little bit. I know, but I feel like you still maintain a tiny bit more quality with a teleconverter. Certainly, when it comes to post and what you can do with one, than trying to crop to the same.
Well, no, yeah, you're right.
You still have the resolution, but
also like the teleconverter isn't to enable you to shoot stuff that's farther away. No, it's to make the thing bigger.
Yeah.
Which is different. It's when you've thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 100% different. Like at 20 feet with a medium-sized songbird, it's a medium in frame. A small songbird at 20 feet is a medium in frame portrait with the 800. Just the minimum focus is 19 feet.
Remember how the other day I was telling you that I practiced talking into this microphone because I'm a pro and I want to be a professional podcaster?
What did you say? You said, I've realized I'm a loser?
I'm a loser? Yeah. Because I'll be up here like talking to myself. Like I'll be like, talk, things to talk about, talk. and then I'll listen to it back and forth to see if like position the mic. What I do at work when I'm bored is I'll stick the 800 or the 100 to 400 on one of my two cameras and find stuff around that's like different bird sizes. So I'll have like a pop can or a mug or like a
You're practicing compositions.
well, not even well composition a little bit,
Like
but like
well,
how
sizes,
far
because the sizes. Yeah.
yeah, how far from certain things do I need to be to have it look a certain way? So that
That is important when you're out there, that you can like at least know you're relatively in the position where you should be to actually be able to focus. Because a lot of the times you're a little too close, or you can be when you're first using that lens, and then now you got to step back. So it's important to know you're far enough away to begin with, and I think that does help, that type of muscle memory that you're kind of training into yourself.
I'm going to ask you a stupid question.
Aren't they all?
Yes, for sure.
Not from you, just in general.
Yeah.
On the spot.
Have you ever seen Harry Potter?
Oh, I haven't.
You haven't. Okay. So,
I haven't watched a single one.
or read the books. Okay.
Nope. Nothing.
So I'm going to make a reference to it that's easy to explain and then reference something else that I think you'll find funny.
Okay.
So the bad guy is named Voldemort.
Mhm.
And in the books and in the movies, they don't say his name because it's like kind of taboo or it's like it's scary. Like you don't say his name. So they say like he who shall not be named or like the unnamed one or stuff like that. Right. So we both know a guy who's come up in every podcast. So I think Mike is turning into the he who shall not be named type of person.
Okay. And I do like that. That does fit him.
Yeah. But
He could be a villain.
he said something insane in the WhatsApp group that it takes like 30 minutes to get to know a piece of gear.
Yeah.
And
that sparks some conversation.
Right. I'm out here at work sticking the 800 on, taking pictures of like sticky note pads and like little trinkets and bigger things I find around. I'm still doing it. I'm still learning. Like I had this little 3D printed spider and I'll stick it on things and it's like, I don't know, it's the size of like a big marble. And I'll just be like, okay, if it's that big in there, what does it look like? And I'll most of my freaking one SD card is just, I don't have them. I don't keep the pictures, but I just like you practice with it.
Stuff. Yeah.
Like I've been doing it way longer than 30 minutes and I'm still surprising myself. So I like flat out disagree with his assessment of that.
Well, you're not a natural pro.
How dare you?
Sorry, I'm just looking at it. I'm just looking at it the angle that he who shall not be named. Man.
We should just start calling him Voldemort.
So yeah, we should actually. I have him as I gotta change. Maybe I will change.
No, you can't change it.
No, I have to because he shoots full frame now.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Not Michael 4/3 anymore.
Michael 4/3 needs to be like a YouTube channel or something. Like it's such a good name.
That's my problem, and I'm gonna say it here. I've said it to him before, but now everybody gets to hear it. He had opportunity, but he sold the stuff before he did anything with it.
Michael 4/3.
Michael 4/3. It could have been. He's looking for this thing on YouTube that can jumpstart. That would have been so good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he's still with Lumix, and I think he had the full frame, and now he got that 500 Sigma, the 5.6
on the
little thing.
L Mount Alliance.
Yes.
Hashtag Jared.
The one that doesn't limit the bodies to 15 frames a second, I believe, like it does on Sony.
Yeah. That bugged me, but I get it. It's kind of like
no, I do too, but
it's kind of like Canon.
Something
like,
to poke.
We don't want third-party lenses.
I was just gonna say it's something to poke at Sony because of the third-party lens Canon
love
thing.
Poking at Sony.
I do. Yeah, I do. I think because they do so many.
They don't though.
No, like I think for landscape they make some outstanding.
Or
bodies.
like wedding or travel or like that
studio
kind of
or travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. For wildlife, unless you're going to spend a good amount of money, I'm just not sure you're getting anything better out of them than you are spending less at Canon.
Yeah, and that was the problem. Like, I know we've talked about this, but that's why one of the reasons I switched over. And like even today, freaking Nikon coming out with the Z52, that looks better than visually, just like not shooting it, but it looks like a better bang for the buck for wildlife than
Yeah.
like a Sony A7
Yeah.
IV kind of thing.
But the funny thing is, I'm also basing it off of what I'm seeing other people shoot with it. I watched Mike. Mike got that lens, and I decided to watch a video, and I found these two old English lads that were sitting in a blind. One of them
Mm-hmm.
had the A9 III with
Mm-hmm.
the Sony.
Is it a 600 or 400 or the 2 to 8 or 2
No,
to 6?
the new 300.
Oh, the 328. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he had the teleconverter, which would
That's a
make it
little
roughly to a
thermos of a
5.6.
lens. Yeah.
So, and he was
Was it
comparing it to a
Ollie?
guy that had.
No, he's
There were two old British guys, and the other guy
yeah.
had an A1 with the
Mm-hmm.
500 f6 or 5.6 Sigma,
Mm.
and they were comparing the two, the Sony to the Sony non-native, obviously Sigma. Their shots were so fucking terrible. Great, they were great guys to sit. I would love to sit there and just hang out with them, but when it came down to it, I really didn't get anything out of it because this guy's shooting an A9 III with this gorgeous 300-2.8.
Mm-hmm.
He could have been using a 75 300 like Canon kit lens for all I care.
Yeah.
It didn't. So that's why it's you put that camera, you put any camera in someone that actually can do something with it. They're all good.
Does it does
They're
it
all
irk
good.
you at all when you see someone with like dope gear taking shmoo pictures of poo? Like
Yes.
it bugs me.
Yeah, so I used to golf a little bit when I was younger too, and all the most terrible golfers that you would play with were the ones that looked exactly like they were a pro. They had all the best things. It was the guys that came with the backyard, garage sale set that would just blast the ball and be the good golfer. And you're like, why don't you golf more? He's like, oh no, I just do it for fun. They were
Yeah.
always the better ones, the ones that were serious about it and bought all the things and tried to pay to win. We're always trying to, they're always trying to mask something, skill that they don't have with
Yeah.
better equipment. It's
Yeah.
kind of a thing that happens, and it happens in a lot of hobbies that need skill for competition.
I think a a way we've had this conversation, you and I, because I am the type of person who I like having the premium stuff. And with the Sony, I used to go back a couple of generations to be able to afford the thing, knowing that I would kind of be left out of like animal eye autofocus and stuff like that. But it was like a better camera at the time. But then like time moves forward and things progress, and then like the trickle down effect happens. So you get those high end features and lower end stuff, and then there's new high end features and things. But I liked the feel and knowing that I had like an older good thing, and you kind of got in my brain hole and started making me think different a little bit. I still think that way, because what I wanted for myself, and this is sort of how I positived my way through that. I was like, I have excellent gear. If pictures are bad, it's not the gear, it's me. So now I know that I have to be better because the gear isn't the problem.
The gear is only so much. The
The
gear
gear,
can
right?
the gear can be useful, and there's specific gear that can be more useful,
Mm-hmm.
100%.
That's a
There's some
different
gear that
conversation.
yeah, there's some exactly. It is a different conversation. It's just it's hard to like discredit the gear, but I also see a lot of the times there's too much emphasis on it as well.
Yeah, and there's definitely like an element of gas involved. If people don't know what gas
Yeah,
is, it's gear acquisition syndrome. It's not actually a syndrome, but you just get
it
like
might be.
maybe it
No,
could be. Maybe it's a symptom of another type of.
he who shall not be named has that syndrome.
Oh, I also do. I love me
Oh,
some
I know you
gear,
do. I know you do.
which is
I've made
why
that
I'm scared if he
comparison
comes on the
many times.
podcast.
He will.
I know we'll get him on. I've said that last time, but it'll
And the
happen.
podcast will be named He Who Shall Not Be Named.
Or just yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll let him rebuttal all this. Don't worry. We'll get there. But anyway,
yeah,
continue.
yeah. Like I used to, like I said, I used to want that expensive stuff, but then you were having and I think this happened in the first episode, which I don't think anyone should listen to. So I'll say it again now.
It doesn't even exist.
No, it doesn't on YouTube. I specifically didn't put it up there. It's on podcast platforms, but not YouTube. Um, I showed up with my I can't remember if I had the A9 or the A7
Yeah, you did.
R3. Is the A9?
A9. Yep.
So I had the A9 and the 200 to 600, and you showed up with your R10 and piddly little plastic 100 to 400, and I was like, "The
Yeah.
frick, this guy doing?"
The Fisher Price camera.
Yeah, the plastic fantastic.
Yep.
And we're shooting, and you're showing me these shots that are freaking hack with a capital T sharp, and I'm like, "Is this sharp?" Like trying to like, and I know like I had on the A7R3, which was a lot higher resolution than the A9. That lens, my version of the 200-600, could take that same sharpness of photo. But shooting side by side you, the same subject with your R10 and 1 to 4, you were getting sharper shots than I was. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand. And
Yeah,
then
it
I was
doesn't
like,
really make sense.
well, it doesn't. But at the same time, I was like, okay, now what am I doing? And then I would try to shoot in this. Well, I could even take conditions out of it. Like you were using a crop body, I was using a full frame, so like light and ISO and all that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is going on? And then you started talking to me about like technique and Fieldcraft and like knowing your gear, and then knowing like the capabilities of it and like certain new stuff versus like older stuff, like kind of critical sharpness has gotten a little bit better in some even less expensive lenses.
Mm-hmm.
And with like even like with the auto corrections and stuff in the cameras now, they can kind of correct for that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't want to say you're a bad influence, because ultimately it was a good thing, but you really made me start thinking about the gear I was using, which, like you said, plays a role. But it doesn't have, just because it's good or previously good doesn't mean that it can't be beat by something that's not as good, that's newer.
Right. But it also doesn't mean that what you were shooting couldn't produce the same results. And I know you touched on that in that little spiel, but I think the important thing with the R10 is the usability, and that 100-400. It is such an easy camera and easy lens to use with very little. There's very little like the room for error. Like you can do some pretty bad stuff and it's still going to get sharp. It's got a lot of magnification. It focuses really well. It stays on its target. It helps you out so much that you can kind of start focusing on other things.
I'm currently holding it on my R7, and I've said this before, but this lens has no right to be as good as it is, in my opinion.
It really shouldn't. It's better on the APS-C, if you ask me. I wouldn't say it's better. It's not better performance-wise. It's a better because it's lower ISO, or you got to shoot higher ISOs because it's f8. You got to shoot slower shutter speeds. There is the rolling shutter that comes along with the R10.
Hey, you leave my R7
a little bit on the R7. Obviously
no R7 hate on this podcast.
more than the R8. So with gear like that, you have to have technique to get more out of it. But for the average person that's picking up a camera, they're going to succeed more on a kit like that than they are more of a pro one, because of the use of ease is so much better. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think the A9 that you were shooting plus the 200-600 does take more skill to shoot than what I was shooting.
Yeah, and that was something that like I didn't think about, because it kind of goes against my thought that like if I get the good gear, it's not that's the problem, it's me. But also using it. You can't just take a 400-2.8 and just crush shots. Like that's a very specific lens to shoot.
If you watch enough YouTube reviews, you feel like you can.
That's true. I'll just say have fallen into that trap. I am falling into that trap.
Why do you think it's so important? Why do you think it's so popular? I'm pretty sure YouTube is made up of 70% kids
playing Minecraft,
20% gear reviews. Certainly mine is. Mm-hmm. There's so much gear review out there that there's got to be an influence, because even he who shall not be named would suggest on his YouTube that most of his views are the outlandish kind of like what do they call it? Thumbnail
I
with the
hate that.
hot take
Yeah.
but he even says it just translates into more views.
Yeah.
That's just what people click on.
Yep.
They're looking for some sort of controversy. They're looking for something to leave a comment. They're looking just for something to defend.
Mm-hmm.
So of course it has an influence, and I think that's why people buy what they buy. It's like when they see the pros playing golf, like I talked about earlier, and they see them using the specific gear and go, I can't be him if I don't have that.
There's definitely an element of that. Like I will play better with this. I will shoot better with this, and I
Yeah.
will be better with this. But there's more to it than that. So that's where gas becomes a big problem, because there's, like we've talked about, like people talk about the exposure triangle where there's aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, and they all play a role in taking the picture.
Yep.
In one of the WhatsApp groups, it came up the other week, like what's the percentage of Fieldcraft gear and skill that play the role in the picture. And
Right.
this gentleman we keep bringing up, once again, had kind of a crazy hot take that I don't remember the percentage. Do you remember the percentages he said?
He doesn't like triangles. I think he's a little bit
He doesn't
against
like
them because he just wanted a line. It was like 90-10.
Oh,
So actually, no,
90%
maybe it
gear.
wasn't. Yeah, so maybe it was 90% gear and in Fieldcraft and 10% skill. So maybe it was a triangle still. So it was like 45, 45,
Well, he only shoots his
and
gear for half an hour, then he moves on to another one because he's an expert in the gear.
10. He's gonna want to come on next episode.
He's
and be
gonna
like,
fight. He's
we
gonna
will.
force his way
No,
on somehow.
we almost have to have him on next time. This has been a bashing.
Would
so.
he be a good one for 10? Like the Mike episode. Like, oh,
If he hears this and says he wants to rebuttal, then we might have to have him on sooner than 10. But if he wants to wait till 10, we can do 10.
see, the problem is I like the number 7, and I don't know if Mike is right for the number 7 for me.
And so will everyone else. Speaking of he who will not be named, another podcaster. The podcast doesn't go anymore. But it was on the same genre as what we do. Had Mike on the podcast,
Yes,
and that was one of his best podcasts for numbers.
it was. You're not wrong. Was it the last? No, it wasn't the last.
Everybody
one.
loved it. Everybody loved his hot takes. Everybody loved.
true.
There's something to like about Mike.
Yeah,
Damn, I said his name.
it's true. Come on, what are you doing? Now we really
there's
have
something to. I know there's something to like about it, but there's also so many things that just get under my skin too. But that's what makes him him.
Yeah, and like don't
like
change,
it,
Mike.
because-
Don't change. Be Mike.
No, don't change because I also want this podcast to the point where I get under people's skin a little bit sometimes too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have my own hot take. It's my personality as well, and it's probably why they clash sometimes too. Maybe we are one and the same on some things.
Big personalities
things.
always clash.
A couple things.
Okay, you got smaller as you progressed.
Well, it is. I'm starting to think, and I'm like, it's really not many things, but it's a few.
Because I think
So, what we want to break down, I think, is what is that triangle?
Yeah. Do you think there's okay? First question: do you think there's another element that should be added to make it a square, or a pentagon, or hexagon?
Well, Fieldcraft covers habitat, where to find them,
Like knowledge of the species and
the
like,
knowledge
kind
of the knowledge of the species of what you're after. Fieldcraft's ever growing. It's not just something.
And it's
skill grows at a much slower rate. Whereas I think you can do so much research on your off time of a species and really get to know it. It's really hard to get to know your camera if you're not behind it.
You got to take pictures of sticky notes and 3D printed spiders. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you brought up some things that maybe the listeners can everybody's now had their camera in their.
The funniest is people will come into the office and I'm just has this really long lens pointed at like a table and they're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. So that's basically covered. I don't know if there's anything else. There might be.
I don't have one holstered. I was legitimately asking you because I think the 3.
I don't think there is. I
I
think
think,
three fits because just like the exposure triangle, there's just three. It just makes sense that there's three things that make up a
yeah,
photo.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also the the definition of, I guess that's not part of this conversation. I was gonna say, what's the definition of a good photo, but I guess it's just subjective and it's the eye of the beholder. Actually,
It's
I think in
subjective, yeah.
this case, the three things are for the person taking the picture,
Right.
not necessarily the person looking at it, because they don't know what went into the picture.
Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. That makes sense.
So
I also think that a photo can be objectively bad, where I don't think a photo can be objectively good.
interesting. Object. So okay. So there's a picture. So remember we talked about that osprey picture that I really like, and I think
With
it's
the
my best
with
picture.
a sucker or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a picture of a red start.
Yeah.
I've often said that I think technically it's one of my better pictures, just
Hmm.
because of how it ended up. It's kind of a three quarters like look over the shoulder, but you can see the whole back of the bird, and it's on a nice mossy log, and the background is blown out green.
Okay.
And like he's in a good spot. It's looking sort of the right way that I would look at it. It's sharp. And to me, there's one piece of it that I don't really like, and I don't think you might be able to edit it out, but I know I couldn't edit it out. There's like another stick that follows the main stick that he's sitting on. That's a little blurrier and forward. And I think it's covering a part of his tail or like a foot or something. But like looking at this picture, I was like, this is what I want most of my pictures to be, because it's sharp. The bird's in a good spot. The bird's in a good pose, and like there's nothing distracting behind it. It's just a well ID showing some behavior, because it's not just sitting there. It's kind of looking over its shoulder back towards me.
Hmm.
So I really like it technically, but maybe someone else wouldn't have the same opinion. Probably they wouldn't.
Well, that's where the subjectiveness comes in
Yeah.
for sure. But I was putting out there like I said that I don't think anything can be objectively good. But now that you said that, I'm starting to think maybe something could be objectively good, and that's just a photo that you look at that's like, yeah, that's okay. It's an eBird photo.
Is that, yeah, it could be boring, but a good
Yeah,
photo.
maybe objectively good photos are just, oh yeah, that's okay photo, but doesn't do anything more than that. Maybe I've
Also,
talked myself already out of this because I know photos can be objectively bad.
oh yeah.
It's for 100%. There's no
Mhm.
subjectivity when it comes to a photo that's bad. You can try to be like let the guy down nicely and say no, it's not that bad. It's a good start.
Nah,
But
full
objectively, you're
direct
like
fucking
it's not.
sucks.
I
Get out
think
of here.
it's full direct too. I don't think we ever got that photo from that guy.
No. Hey,
That's okay. We're not calling you out. I'm not the he who shall not be named as well. It's okay if you didn't. That's fine. But I would like to
did he
see
say he
one
was going
from
to
one
send
of you
something in?
guys. Yeah, I think so. But I'm very forgetful too, so more than likely he forgot. Maybe this is
Maybe
another reminder.
maybe we
When
did
he's
bad
he'll
things and didn't check the email inbox, which is totally possible.
we probably did.
I'll check it after this.
Yeah. So back to the gear
Hmm.
fieldcraft skill.
Yeah. I haven't
To
really been thinking about this, like, word to the people. Like, we kind of talk about what we're going to talk about beforehand, but I haven't
And that's
come
it,
up
though.
with, right. Yeah. We're just like, we're going to talk about this. No, shut up.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it all for the podcast.
Yeah.
Hashtag content. So I don't have, I might be crafting my percentages on the fly, because I kind of thought about it at the time that it came up in the WhatsApp, and then now, like, I might have changed it. I don't know. I have kind of a rough idea. Do you have a rough idea?
Okay. I have the idea that I originally came up with. This was a conversation with he who not shall not be named and I on a conversation where it just was him and I. It was just a private thing between him and I said, "Hey, maybe poll. Let's poll them and see what everyone says." Then it came into the group
Oh,
chat.
okay, yeah.
So I already had my idea coming in.
Okay. So I'll kind of say mine.
Okay.
I think I think, okay, I'll say this first. If you would have asked me this question at different points in my photography journey, which is still going, it's still continuing, these percentages would have been different. But
That does make sense. Yep.
I think they were getting to something a little
Yep.
more accurate.
Nope, that makes sense.
I would say that the percentage that I thought gear played has come down, and I'm realizing that the skill and the fieldcraft play a lot bigger role than the gear. So I'm going to go with 40, 40, and 20 for gear.
Okay.
So 40% fieldcraft, 40% skill with the gear that you are using, or just your skill in general, and then 20% is the gear itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to probably be more like gear would be like 60 and 20 for the other ones kind of thing. Like,
Right.
obviously, if I have good gear, like my pictures will be sick. But you can take shit photos with excellent gear. Like, that's easy. It's easy to do.
Yeah, and we also have to understand the gear now in 2024 versus what it was in 2014.
True. That does
So that
play a
also
role.
adds to the expectations of what you should be able to do with the gear because it does become more and more user friendly. And it's like when they add a feature and you don't really know how to use it, but then they add a feature that's automated. It does it more for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's more controlled by an artificial intelligence. It does more things for you. So
Mm-hmm.
then you utilize it more, and now it becomes kind of just something that just gets done for you.
Yeah.
Whereas you could have done that in the past by setting up your camera right, but if you didn't have the right skill to use that or figure it out or how to make it work, they've now manufactured it to work better for you. So I think that's why those percentages are changing in the gear as well.
In my job in IT, it's a skill to just Google a question. My users will be like,
Are they hiring?
I don't want to work with you. No offense. It'd be too much Matt. It'd be too much Matt. But it's like it's an older generation, some of them, and they would be like, they could probably like till a field or repair a tractor or do something that I can't, but they can't Google something. So like this skill to accomplish something in a part of your life definitely also changes. So like you're right.
Yeah.
Where like the skill to use a DSLR to take these shots is different than a skill to use one of these smarter mirrorless cameras. So like there is definitely a shift.
Right.
So that also plays a role with the
Right.
percentages a little bit. Because like also I will say certain types of gear will get you different looking or different types of shots, but within that is still somewhat objectively good and bad shots. But like you can't emulate a 400 mil with like a 35. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, just the science behind it is just not the same thing.
So I
And
think
it's funny because as you work your way through it, these percentages are slightly just moving and bouncing around.
nebulous.
So this is why I say that it's 33%, 33%, and 33%. Because how important exposure and shutter speed, aperture, and ISO is, you don't put one above the other. Because at one time, a higher shutter speed is more important than a lower. And at another time, a higher ISO is important than the other. And another time, a more wide open aperture is more important than a closed one. So it has to be objectively 33%. It's just how much you're using in that specific time.
If you're a frequenter of the YouTube thing, I would say that on the exposure triangle, ISO is the least important because a lot of people push the manual with auto ISO.
I would agree that ISO is probably the least important of the three. If you were to have to put a gun to my head, yes.
Who's doing that?
Yeah.
Pick one.
He who shall not be named, maybe on episode 10.
But yeah, and
You
but
open,
like
you,
it,
you you created the monster.
I know, I'm sorry. Mike, this is not meant to offend. It's all good. Like you're definitely gonna come on and we'll chop it up for
He
sure.
Mike doesn't get offended.
Good.
That's what I like about Mike.
That's
That's what I
that's
like
a
about Mike.
that's a good quality and I would say a dying art.
He he knows of someone with his personality, and I do, and I get it because of mine. You can't be. As much as you dish it out, you have to take it.
True.
It's the way it's got to work, or
It has
else
to.
it doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. Yeah. Anyway, so that yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say ISO definitely does play a big role. I'm not trying to say that it doesn't. Like, it's a skill in itself to know what the correct ISO is for a given situation because there is one,
Yeah.
and it comes from like I'm sure you could even like calculate it math wise. Because like you'll need certain shutter speed or aperture for something you're doing, and then there'll be an ISO that has to be there for like the exposure that you're trying to get. Like it's a thing. But all we're doing with the auto ISO, which I do shoot, is just be like, camera,
I do
take
not.
this off my plate. Oh, I know.
Right.
We've had you know what's funny? And I know we've talked about this too. I have to stop saying that because people don't care that we've talked about this already. That I'm now used to using just the exposure comp, which is functionally the same as just boosting
Just using
or-
ISO.
Yeah. So I'm still
That's
just
exactly what I'm saying.
I know.
I know there's a point for it, and I know there's a time for it, but I don't shoot that type of stuff very much. But
Yeah.
yeah, you kind of just talked exactly what I would feel about it.
I know because
It's useful. Don't get me wrong. I just don't use it.
because all I'm going is doing. I want this to be brighter or darker. I could be doing the same thing with the ISO wheel.
If you're shooting a bird in flight and it's going in and out of shadows and backgrounds that are bright and dark, and it's metering, yeah, you want that, and you want to sometimes be able to just kind of, if say it perches on something quickly, are you going to switch your auto ISO over to no? That's when the exposure compensation comes into play when maybe it's stopped on something or there's a little bit of action that's in the same scene for a little while. Then you can kind of fine tune. There's like a coarse setting and a fine setting. You know what I mean? It's kind of how I look at the exposure compensation when it comes to auto ISO.
Here's where I do miss Sony because they had 4 wheels.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So
Yeah.
you have one for all 3 and one
Yeah.
for exposure comp, which was kind
So
of
it's
nice.
always live. Everything's ready to go.
Yeah.
Yep, I understand that. But would you say you could pick which one is more important when it comes to exposure,
Yes.
ISO, and aperture? You could pick one?
Between ISO and aperture?
No, all three.
Shutter speed.
Pick the one that's the most important.
Shutter speed.
Is it?
I think so.
For every situation.
Uh
It's always
Okay.
fluctuating.
right. I
And that's
don't
kind of my argument with the gear. It's always fluctuating depending on what you're deciding to shoot.
Mhm.
Some things don't take as much fieldcraft, like a chickadee. Go put some seed on your hand.
on your hand. Yeah.
That takes not a lot of.
Even actually go to the right spot, you don't need seed. They'll check anyway.
You're right. You're right.
They'll
But
be like,
it's just always moving. It's, you know what I mean?
so the reason I answered it that way is because I think that's my process to think through how I'm going to shoot a scene. So
Oh yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, no, I get that. Yep.
I think shutter speed first. Is this
Yeah,
thing
100%.
stationary or moving? We'll start there. Aperture probably just going to be the widest that my 2 slowest. Actually, one of our lenses can't even adjust it. It's just 11.
I like it.
Yeah, there's no
Take-
thinking.
Down with variable apertures.
There's people out there. There has to be that are shooting the F11s on aperture priority mode.
Oh my god, I've never considered this.
I just
There
thought of
are.
that now.
No, there are. I guarantee there.
100%. Because they said they heard
Oh,
some
that's fun.
YouTuber being like, yeah, just shoot on aperture priority mode.
Yeah.
There's literally
It's
no
not,
point.
it's not making a change on
It
mine.
doesn't do anything.
I think my aperture motor's broken.
Yeah. They forgot to put it in.
The transmission dropped.
It just fell right off. But yeah, I think shutter speed first, aperture second, and then ISO floats.
And I think that's you're thinking about the wrong thing. That falls under skill.
Oh, it. So you're right, and like I think in developing your skill, and that's the reason I think a lot of YouTubers will suggest those more auto
Mhm.
manual modes
Yeah,
because they're like only worry about this one thing until you've
right.
got that dialed, and then
Yeah,
add
and that
one
makes
of the other
sense.
ones or
Yep.
the other one.
Yep.
I just haven't
Yeah.
progressed past the first two.
Yeah.
ISO just is whatever it is.
Mhm.
Also,
I
there's just
shooting
less
the
knobs.
R10 though. Yeah, shooting the R10 because it I really wouldn't shoot over ISO 3200 in good ambient light.
Hmm.
Like in the best light, I wouldn't shoot it much more over 3200. Most of the time, I'd want to stay under 25, more like ISO 2000. I
Hmm.
got used to keeping my ISO lower, and then now depending on slower shutter speeds and higher burst rates of frame rate.
Yeah, that's
So I
another
am a
thing.
little, so I am conscious of keeping ISOs lower because I've acquired and fine-tuned the skill of slower shutter speeds. So I do get a little bit of a benefit of that too in certain situations,
That
shooting
comes
slower
back to this
speeds.
freaking plastic fantastic. It has dope stabilization. It's crazy.
Amazing. I can shoot that thing at 1/5 of a second.
Yeah,
I was shooting great horned owls at like almost basically dark. It was dusk. I was
at
trying to get like
f8.
the moon behind it at f8 on my R10, kind of resting it, kind of bracing myself up against a tree, hand holding it, looking through the EVF, but at 1/5 of a second.
Hmm.
We have to like figure out how to remember all these photos to like
Oh
put
man,
in the.
yeah. You gotta have a clipboard and like.
I know. I said I was gonna do that, and I haven't.
But like you just said something else in there that I think is interesting. I think you said, I guess it could be either fieldcraft or skill. When you're like, I was leaning against a tree.
Yeah.
So now you're like, I need to be more stable in order to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take
Yeah.
advantage of what's around me in order to do that.
Yeah, and that's knowing my limitations of I can probably only handheld down to 1/15th of a second, 1/15th.
I would say
130,
30 for me.
130 consistently.
Yeah.
But I can probably get a couple in focus out of 20 frames. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's cheating is the wrong word. Um, but I would say it's also, I don't know if it's a bad habit to just be like perched bird, 40 frames per second. All right. And just rattle off a burst because you're like, one of those is probably good. Like,
It comes in handy. Like
definitely.
say it's preening, or say it's um a hummingbird and it's sitting there, but you want the tongue out.
Yeah.
Yep, makes sense.
So
Say the light's low and you have a slower aperture lens. Yep, that makes
when I
sense.
when I went to Sony, I was like, 8 frames per second is probably fine. Like, what would I need more than that for? And then I took a picture. I was tracking a merganser flying along a river, and I guess they flap at 8 beats per second because all of the wing
It was the
positions were
same
up.
one.
Yeah, they were
Yeah, they're
just
all the
up.
same.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to say probably 12 is probably what you want minimum.
Well, yeah, I like 12. Usually, well, the R7 I run at 15 because
Hmm.
30 is a lot, and then the R8 I don't run at
20.
40. It's 20
No,
because it's 40 or
I wish it was
8 or something.
15 actually, to be honest.
Yeah, 15 is a good number.
Like I wish I could fluctuate it between 6 and 20 and then just give me the 40.
I think some of the higher end cannons you could maybe choose, or
Well,
there's
Canon or Twisted Tea, someone pay me enough money that I can find that out myself
yeah,
and utilize it.
because as we've
It's not
talked
like I
about, gear
don't
plays a
like it's not like
huge
I
role.
don't like it's not like I don't like nice gear.
You just don't like buying it for yourself.
Correct. I don't
Yeah,
think it's necessary for where I'm at in the hobby. I'm just
that's another
enjoying it,
good
and I
point.
want something that I can put in my camera bag and just walk 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers, and be like, I'm not tired because I lugged around a bunch of gear. But also, if I had the money to buy the gear, I'd be like, I'm not walking 15 or 20 kilometers. I'm going to Kenya. You know what I mean? No, like,
Just
so
sit
I
in a
get it.
car.
Yeah, I get it. Like, I'm not walking around with this lens all the time. I'm gonna go shoot a national park in Africa. I'm gonna go shoot at the Galapagos. I don't know. I don't fucking know. I've never really considered that stuff. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's I know I see a lot of people walking around with a lot of big lenses, and they're shooting the same stuff that I am, and only a couple of them are getting better results.
I think the mainstream, I guess, lenses that Canon, Nikon, and Sony are doing right now are probably the heaviest that I would be okay with carrying around for the whole day. Like the 180 to 6, the 2 to 6, and the 2 to 8.
2 to 8. Yeah.
They're all about the same weight.
Yep.
Which it was like 2,100 grams
Yeah,
or
because you had
something.
the 6600, and that's like another
That thing was a monster.
level. Yeah.
That was like 6 kilograms, I think. No. Was it
No. No. Wasn't it 6.5 pounds?
Was it pounds? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't
6 kilograms would be like 14 pounds.
It was, or maybe it was
No,
7
more
pounds.
than that. 15 pounds.
7 pounds.
Yeah, I think
is
it
a
was
number
7 pounds.
that
If Rain
feels
is
right.
listening, he's yelling right now because he has it.
Rain, put it in the comments.
It's 3,243 grams, dumbass.
He's the only one left shooting that. No, Craig still has one. But he's not in the group.
Craig, did he have it last time we were out? Oh, he
Yeah.
did. Yeah, he had it with
Yep,
him.
he did.
Yeah.
I miss it, but I don't miss the weight, and I don't want it back because of that. But I did like the lens.
Just wait for Canon to get you something.
400-2.8, hook me up, and then I'm gonna move.
Stuff's coming. Didn't I see something a 30 to 600?
Yeah, there was some patent for a 30 to 600. And I was like,
Mhm.
is that just the new like 70 to 300, but like different? So it'll be like f 18.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
a
yeah.
half.
It's gonna be a slower variable aperture.
Does
Kind
Canon
of like
do a
the
bridge
kind of like
camera?
the 24 240. Canon had the power shot.
Do they still?
That was a. I don't know. I'm not
Because
sure.
maybe they're trying to like get people on the interchangeable lenses, but also get the same people who would buy like the Cool Pix 950 thing or whatever with the 1.5
Yeah.
millimeter thing. It
Yeah.
sounds like it could be.
Like some of the Canons, like the R50 and R100, they're basically. I know they're not the same focal lengths, but the usability and then the quality you can get out of it better than any Canon power shot or for the same
Sensors,
price.
People like specs. People like specs, and they don't consider like stuff like sensor size for those things, because that's how the Cool Pix are getting all this crazy millimeter equivalent. It's because the sensor is the size of a freaking half a fingernail.
Yeah.
And then
It's like everything's so sharp, and it's just like, well, like it's like cropped in. Like you're never gonna have like bad corners on it because there's no corners on it.
just forgot the corner. But like, there's a person who those cameras are for, and it's not me. It's the person who just. It's kind of half of me. It's the person who likes birds and just wants to be like, I saw this bird.
Yeah.
Here's proof.
But this is where we're gonna prove where it's 33% gear, and it's 33% Fieldcraft, 33%. Because if 33% skill, because if you give that camera to somebody that's actually very skilled in wildlife, they're gonna get some nice photos with it.
Well, what about freaking? Oh, what the heck's his name? Raptors something. He used to be.
Kareem.
Kareem.
He had the RX-10.
Yeah, and shot the absolute piss out of that thing.
That's
Just
what
crushed
Mike
it.
like introduced me like to his work was when he was shooting that, and it was a 1-inch sensor
And he had
with a 24 to 600.
Yeah.
He didn't know lenses came off.
Yeah, he's like, "What? That doesn't make any sense. Your lens come off?
Your lens came off, bro? Oh no! Like did it break?
that's so terrible."
That was years ago, but
yeah, and now he shoots like 135s now, and
yeah, he has the R10 and he has the 100 400, but he's loving the 135.
yeah, he's got some excellent stuff, and like he's a so what I'm looking for. An
Stoner?
example of
sorry.
fieldcraft and skill. What'd you say?
Oh yes, a stoner.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Maybe that helps.
Oh yeah, 100%. Skill gear doesn't matter to him.
No.
Give him the gear, he's gonna get something nice. Give him better gear, he's gonna get something nicer.
Yeah.
That's why it's 33%.
Yeah.
By 3. Cubed? Would that be cubed? Cubed in a triangle?
Now that's math, and
No.
I'm not sure.
Well, cubed is 2, right? Or 3?
3.
3. Okay, so
Squared
it
is
is cubed.
2.
It's 30. Yeah, so it's 33%
But
cubed
that's cubed
in
is
a
33
triangle.
times 33 times 33,
I know, but I'm
which
just
is,
saying there's three of them 33s,
does that
and it
equal
makes
photo?
and there's a point 0.3 and it equals 100.
Yeah.
It's a 33.3, it's a
Someone
33.3, and it's
draw
a
that math.
33.3.
Someone draw math
Someone I'm
logic.
gonna I'm gonna AI the math.
Yes, please do.
But that's why I always think you kind of go back to a subjective 33% mix because it always is moving back and forth.
So your logic is, since it's always moving, it's has to be 33. It has to
No,
be an
it
equal thing.
starts there. It
Oh,
starts there. Every time
okay.
you go out, it starts. It's just whether what you decide to shoot, how you decide to shoot it, and what you decide to shoot it with
Hmm.
just slightly adjusts that from 33. But that's the starting basis.
I don't do it
That's
enough.
where it all starts.
I definitely don't do it enough. I did a little bit more of it this year than I have in the past, but I think more people should try to shoot shorebirds to learn fieldcraft, because they tend to, more so than like other birds, maybe it's easier to see, they'll like work a shoreline in the same kind of path a bunch of times, especially something like the
I think it's
sanderlings.
easier to see. It's their environment that
Yeah,
gives you the
it's
opportunity
usually
to
flat.
view them. Yeah, and you can see them for ages,
Yeah,
especially if you're looking down, like down the beach and it through your lens or through your EVF or whatever.
because you can watch them like fart along and poke around, and then you just like stay somewhere in the direction
Yeah,
they're going. They'll
yeah,
walk over you in some cases and just mosey
and
on.
and and you'll see them interact with other ones. You'll see them tilt their head and their eye will go to the sky.
Hmm.
You'll
Then a
see them do
peregrine will
all of
come
these.
down.
Yeah, well, you'll see them all flash in a second, and then about 5 seconds later, boom, usually a falcon or something's coming
Yep,
overhead.
yep,
So like you said, like it's really if that happens in the forest, you don't know what flushed it. You don't know
right.
if it was just a ground squirrel that was near it that was kind of like just foraging or whatever, got too close. So you're
Or
100% right about that.
or this douche is trying to sneak up on him from behind and spook him for you. It's never happened.
But it's a very good observation that the shorebirds definitely they show you that birds have behavior and that you should look for that in other species.
Yeah.
It's just that's the easiest one to kind of pick up on things to pick up on.
Yeah, maybe like backyard birds too. Like if you're just
Yeah.
watching your
Well,
feeder,
because they go to your feeder, they come out to the open. Yeah.
they come to, and then sometimes they'll go
You
to the
bunch of
same branch.
baiters.
Yeah, just
No,
feeder
I'm kidding. I
shots.
don't
Everyone's
care.
just taking, but they'll hop to like the same branch and maybe eat the seed there, and like go back to the feeder, go back to the same
Yeah.
branch. So you can
Yeah.
kind of start seeing behavior,
Hmm.
and like different birds have different behavior, and
Yep.
that's for me. That for me is part of the fun to know, and that's I think why I know I could find a hawk in 10 seconds. It's like there'll be a hawk over here because
Yeah.
they're always there because I
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. And that's behavior though.
Right, exactly. Which is part of the fieldcraft and part of the skill of the shot is knowing the birds and
Where?
things. What's
Yeah.
interesting is my sister-in-law last year, she was kind of getting into birds. She's kind of a naturey person. And she asked me how I know what certain types of bird, like actually no, she didn't ask it that way. She asked me like, how do I go about starting to identify what a type of bird is? And for me, because I've just been kind of doing it for so long, I kind of forgot because it's kind of all automatic almost in a way
Hmm.
for some stuff. But one of the things that I pointed her to, and that was a big help for me when I was a kid, the Peterson, specifically the Peterson field guides, they're all hand drawn. But what
Hmm.
they do is all of the birds will have arrows pointing at the things that make them different from other ones and stuff to look for on on the bird. So maybe point to the legs of certain shorebirds because they're like these
Right.
have black legs, these ones have yellow
Yep.
legs, or
Yep.
like this mark on the head makes it different
Hmm.
than this one. And if it's even similar, often they'll do like a blown up image of both, and then point to like maybe an eye ring or a little mustache or something on the bird that's
Right.
different slightly.
Right.
So it helped me look for the stuff with arrow, like
Yep.
what would be the thing with an arrow.
Yeah. And then at the bottom they have the juveniles, and you're like, ah, damn it.
Brown. It's all brown.
Yeah. Non-breeding and juveniles. You're like, fuck,
Do
what
they
are
have
these things?
what are the five freaking flycatchers that are all the same except for basically what they
Oh,
sound like?
like alder, willow, all those
Yeah, yeah,
ones.
yeah. They have
Yeah,
a whole page of those, and then
yeah,
each one's they have the picture of them, but then they have a little like graph of what they sound like, and then
yeah.
it has
That's the only way to identify, like
literally,
between the
yeah,
two of them. Between I think alder and least. No, not least. Is
the
it willow?
willow. I think the willow
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
alder. I
yeah.
I could be entirely wrong,
You
but
need to hear the song.
yep.
Yeah.
And there was one time, like I've only really used it once, where I saw one of them, and I don't think I might have got a picture of it, but I don't remember. It was at like a drainage pond, another
Hmm.
spot near my old work.
Some of my favorite places.
Yeah, the shit ponds, man.
Yeah, I love my shitter ponds.
But it was sitting and it was calling, so I busted open my Peterson guide, which is always around, and I was like, flipped to this stupid page of green flycatchers that all look the same, and I was like, I'm like, oh, it's got to be this one. Like,
Do you think that they're smart enough to like go, ha, he's gonna think that I'm this guy, and I'm
oh,
gonna
because they're
use this
mimics, they're
call?
gonna call something else.
Well, because like the blue winged warbler and the golden wing, when they when they like intersex, I'm gonna just completely kill this, like be really bad at this. But
Hybridize.
when they hybridize or interbreed, sometimes they'll take the song of the other one, even though it should be. If it looks like
Oh,
the golden wing, it'll have the blue wing sound.
oh, I didn't know that.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it just happens, and I'm like, if you're just IDing, you're like, oh, I got a blue wing, but really
Interesting.
it was a Bruce. It really was a Brewster's. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that I was just wondering, maybe the flycatchers are
they could, and like
screwing with
honestly,
people.
they might just be
What
the
if it's ever
same one,
documented?
and then they picked
Yeah,
up the language. Maybe it's just a
I don't
language
think
thing.
I don't think we have many birders that listen to this since we're like primarily on like Instagram and
I don't
things
know
where we're
if we have
sharing
many people
photos.
that listen to this.
We're doing all right.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me? People are crushing this. We got great numbers. Keep them coming, and
roll them in.
roll them in. And yeah, so I don't think we're gonna offend many people with these. These are stupid questions. The
These are
photo
stupid
side,
conversations.
yeah, stupid conversations. The photo side, we can kind of do all right. But
I don't know.
yeah,
I will probably offend most people most of the time.
that's okay.
That could be our slogan: offending
I
most
think
people most of the time.
I think they're here for it. If
Yeah,
they're
I think
still
so.
here, they're here for it, and I like that.
That's true.
There are people, and then they're gonna find people that are like, I think you might like this. I think you might like these two idiots.
I was thinking, do we? Is it? Should we be those people that are like, follow, and subscribe, and share with your friends? 'Cause that's always
Does
getting
it
back to
work
cringy
though? The
YouTube
only reason
stuff.
the only reason people are doing that is because most of the time people watching their stuff aren't following or subscribed.
Yeah.
But does it make them do it by saying that? Does that reminder actually help?
Let's do an experiment. If I say, hey, everyone who's listening to this, send it to at least one other person. Do it. I dare you.
Yeah,
Have you
just
done it
send
yet?
it. Even if they don't like it, like at least you've done
Yeah.
your part.
That's the thing. If they don't like it, our numbers still go up for that one episode.
At least that one episode.
Yeah.
And then the next time send it to somebody else that you haven't pissed off by sending us our
Yeah.
junk.
I, I've never done that for anybody. I don't know. Now I'm asking
No,
for.
but that's my point. Like that's why I'm wondering if it actually works. Or if
I don't
it's
know.
just something necessary because the numbers show that somebody who's listening or somebody who's watching your channel isn't subscribed. It's like there's got to be a way you can get them to engage. You got to remind them. Like I just don't even think it works.
I
If you're
like.
good enough, someone's going to engage with your work and want to follow it.
I do like a contentious question or like a poll or like like you want to genuinely know kind of an opinion or something of the a group of people. So you'd ask
Right.
like, if you agree with me, post it or like do something like that.
Yeah.
Who
That
do you
kind of
agree with?
engagement farming.
Is the triangle of skill fieldcraft gear, what did I say, 40 40 20
I
or
think
20
we're close enough that it can be
or your
like
bunk
you and
ass
I
math
are
equation?
you're well, it's 33.3%
33
for all
33
three of them.
squared
I think it was 100%.
cubed.
That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. I know what you're saying.
I think we're really close. I think most of the other participants were certainly they were. whether the numbers were the same, they put a big emphasis on fieldcraft and skill, but that then brings down gear.
Yeah. And then Voldemort was out to lunch.
Voldemort was out to lunch.
Is up.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what we should do. We should go out to lunch with Voldemort.
And do the interview?
Yeah. That'd be good. That's what we could call it.
Is this one called Out to Lunch?
It might be called Out to Lunch with Voldemort.
Does it have to have with Voldemort or just out to lunch?
Out to lunch.
No, I think it has to be with Voldemort just because they're quirky.
Yeah.
Titles to begin
They're like,
with.
that's not anything to do with birds. What the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
I think this is a good place to end, Matt. We've kind of tapered out. So you've been listening to the Angry Bird Pod Show with Matt and Kyle. And you can find us on Instagram. If you don't know where by now, go back and listen to it again because that also boosts our numbers.
Please like and subscribe.
Please like and I don't know if you can. I guess you could subscribe to the podcast. Actually,
subscribe to it all. You can follow.
One of the things Spotify. That a podcast that I like about F1 does is they will read out reviews. So if people leave a review, they'll kind of give them a shout out.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I would do that. But the way they do it and the way I'm going to say it here, you have to leave a 5-star review just to milk the numbers.
I figure if anybody's still here and they're not offended or they don't like us personally, like they're into us, they're here because it is 5-star quality.
Yeah. And if you believe that, leave a 5-star review on whatever thing that you're listening to it on. We can probably see it somehow. I'll figure that out. And then we'll read it and we'll credit you. So do that.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you think now we should start the music? I really like being like the music's going to start at a specific point.
And then it starts and it's slowly fading.
Yeah, when do you think it should start? You call it this time.
Now.
Perfect. It started.
Love you, Kyle.
Love you too, buddy. See you
next time.
Feathers beating wings, all up in the lens. Kyle and Matt snapping, capturing all them trends. Peeping through the scope, freeze frame the fly. Angry Bird Pod Show, aiming for the sky. Oh, they click in the snap, see the birds on the map. Angry Bird Pod Flow, flipping through the recap. Kyle and Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tune in next week, this one never in the past. Eagles, hawks, and kestrels, flying so divine. Peep the live broadcast, podcast goldmine. Twisting in the air, birds of every kind. Critics gonna chirp, but they ain't ever dying. Zooming in on sparrows, robins in the mist. Matt's got the shutter, Kyle's got the twist. Feathered friends in flight, equipped with the strut. Angry Bird Pod Show, capturing the cut. Oh, they click in the snap, see the birds on the map. Angry Bird Pod Flow, flipping through the recap. Kyle and Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tune in next week, this one never in the past. On the twilight, watch the colors flash. Birds of every shade in a photogenic dash. No need for fame, just the birds flying free. Angry Bird Pod Show, bringing all the glee. Oh, they click and they snap, see the birds on the map. Angry Bird Pod Flow, flipping through the recap. Kyle and Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tune in next week, this but never in the past. Eagles, hawks, and kestrels, flying so divine. Keep the live broadcast, podcast goldmine. Twisting in the air, birds of black, so fine. Brain Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tuning in next week, this but never in the past. In the past. Tuning in next week, this but never in the past. In the past. Zooming in on sparrows, robins in the mist. Matt's got the shutter, Kyle's got the twist. Feathered friends in flight, equipped with the strut. Angry Bird Pod Show, capturing the cut. From dawn to twilight, watch the colors flash. Birds of every shade in a photogenic dash. No need for fame, just the birds flying free. Angry Bird Pod Show, bringing all the glee. Oh, they click and they snap, see the birds on the map. Angry Bird Pod Flow, flipping through the recap. Kyle and Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tune in next week, this one never in the past. From the past. Not shortcut. Not shortcut. Angry Bird Pod Show, bringing all the glee. Bringing all the glee.